Ken Flo, I've liked what I've seen from Jimmy Crute, certainly a developing fighter, a prospect. I think not unlike Johnny Walker, maybe this is a huge reach by me, but he does have sort of an unusual energy to him in this light heavyweight division. Your thoughts on Crute and Alvey this weekend down under?
Yeah, agreed. And I think this is a tough one to call, not only because of Crute's propensity for getting hit, but also Alvey and his knockout power. This guy gets hit as well, and Alvey a lot of times will play possum and he'll back up and he'll take shots and it'll look like he's hurt. He'll lure you in, and then one shot and the fight is over with either hand. So this is a tricky one for me. I think it will be a firefight. As far as power goes, that's what I'm going to lean to when I see fights that are matched up this way. So, yeah, I got to lean towards Alvey as well. I think he probably gets it done by TKO at some point later in the fight.
All right, next up on the main card, women's flyweight division, Montana De La Rosa minus 250. Nadia Kassem coming back at plus 200. De La Rosa pretty good so far, 2-0 in the octagon, back-to-back submission wins. Kassem also undefeated in the UFC. She's 5-0 overall, getting a home game here, Feliz. What do you think about this one at 125 pounds?
Well, looking at this one, I watched Montana last night. She looks like a good young fighter, one of those ones that you can expect big improvements from every time she fights. She looks long for the weight class. I noticed that. She has a good jab and is a good counterpuncher, and she looks to be a real problem when she gets on top of you. With Nadia, I've seen that she's moving up from 115, so she might be a little undersized. I noticed she also gets hit. I think she's going to have trouble with De La Rosa's long jab and her size. So I could see De La Rosa getting top position, getting a stoppage. But either way, I'm predicting a dominant performance from De La Rosa.
I like this Feliz Granados cat, Ken Flo. He's watching film last night. He's got a nice SoCal sound to him. Montana De La Rosa for Feliz, Ken Flo. Are you in agreement or no?
He's facing the champ, John. Come on. He's got to bring it. He's doing his homework. Champ. Oh, okay, sorry.
Don't sell yourself short. You've won 3 main event challenges, Ken. Just because I haven't paid off all the bets yet, you've won 3.
At least I got a championship in something. All right. Well, listen, I agree. I think Montana De La Rosa is probably the favorite here, and I think size, length will probably play a factor here in this one. But I think she's just a little bit cleaner with what she does. So no major breakdown for me. I think De La Rosa probably gets it done, maybe with a TKO.
All right, couple plays there on the prohibitive favorite, Montana De La Rosa. Next up on the main card here, close fight, at least according to Vegas at bantamweight. Ricky Simon, slight favorite here, Feliz, minus 130. Ronnie Yaya, the even money underdog, at least here early during fight week. What do you think about this one?
All right, can we first start with Ricky Simon's hair? Like, with a mullet like that, you got to be able to fight. Do you agree?
Have to.
That
yes.
thing is...
I have a 7-month-old. I got a 7-month-old son. It looks like he's got a mullet coming. I'm resisting the urge to fucking shave it off. So yes, you better be able to fight, and Ricky Simon can fight.
All right. So what I think about Ricky Simon, very active fighter. That's the first thing that jumps off. He stays busy. It's the biggest takeaway I got from watching him fight, and he has constant pressure and great cardio. Ronnie Yaya, on the other hand, he's a true veteran. I remember him from the WEC. So his strengths are definitely his experience, and he's got some slick submissions. But I'm going to take, in this one, I'm going to go with Simone. I'm going to say his wrestling can control the position, keep him from getting submitted, and I think he'll use his pace to get a decision over Ronnie Yaya.
Ken Flo, so far so good. Ricky Simon in the UFC 2-0. Interesting prospect that a lot of people think can make a run here. He's fought good competition outside the UFC. In the UFC, wins over Merab Dvalishvili and Montel Jackson. 14-1 overall. Yaya is just criminally underappreciated, right? 36 pro fights, at least relative to his resume, he's underappreciated. 36 pro fights, 15 in the UFC. 11 of those are wins. 3 straight wins. Overall, might be 4, but the last 3 wins have come by submission. Probably a guy who deserves some acknowledgement in that Damian Maia, Charles Oliveira conversation. Your thoughts on Yaya here against the oncoming force that is Ricky Simon?
Well, listen, Simone, I think he's a good fighter. I think he's pretty solid all the way around. He can get hit as well. I think it's going to come down to the wrestling, right? If he could stop Yaya's takedowns and pressure, I think it's Simone's fight to lose. I think Simone definitely has a big advantage on the feet, just the cleaner striker. Yaya's gonna have to get this to the ground, but I think he does. I think he finds a way to hit that high crotch double leg combo that he uses to get people to the mat. Very slick with his front chokes and his ability to get to the back. I think Yaya finds a way to get it done by submission in this one against Simone.
And for our purposes, Rana Yaya is an even money underdog. And of course, I'm contractually prevented from betting on mixed martial arts, and I don't make any picks. But Yaya is a guy who I would never be looking to go to the window to bet against, right? Because I just don't want to be in a situation where I have money against that guy and he goes submission hunting and it's game over, rip up your ticket. All right, co-main event features the greatest middleweight champion the UFC has ever seen, the former King Anderson Silva. He will be 44 years old in April. Here he returns from a 2-year layoff. That was a win his last time out against Derek Brunson. He's plus 475 because he is taking on the last style bender, Israel Adesanya, who is minus 650. Feliz, handicap this one for me, man.
All right, let's start off with Anderson Silva. He is probably my favorite fighter of all time. I'm not sure if he's the pound-for-pound greatest ever, but I do believe his prime is the greatest prime of any fighter I've seen. My biggest fear on watching this fight is I don't want a repeat of like BJ Penn versus Jair Rodriguez. But I don't think we're going to see that. Israel Adesanya, everybody knows he's a dynamic striker, probably the best since Anderson Silva. He's a precision striker, but doesn't appear to be a big 185er, so that can work in Anderson's favor. I'm going to take Adesanya, but I don't think it's going to be a crazy knockout like some predict. Adesanya will win unanimous decision, but Anderson's still a good striker, and I don't think he gets manhandled by anyone on the feet.
All right, Ken Flo, we know you were on the Adesanya train well before it stopped at the Octagon. He's 15-0 in MMA, 75 pro kickboxing wins. And in the UFC, I think my biggest takeaway is that he has elevated his game and his performance with the competition. He has fought a better man each and every time out. Brad Tavares and Derek Brunson, the last two, and he has gotten better from Wilkinson to Vettori to Tavares to Brunson. Now he takes on Anderson Silva. He is a minus 650 favorite. What do you think?
All those things that you said are extremely accurate, and I will go a step further. After all of that, I think this is probably the most favorable matchup for him out of all of those guys. I really believe it. Why? Because when you get another technical striker, a guy who's trying to come forward and be creative, I just don't think he's going to be as creative as Israel Adesanya. Adesanya has faced so many high-level kickboxers and boxers. I just think he's seen everything that Anderson's going to throw at him. I think he's been watching Anderson
right
for a very long time. I think Israel Adesanya, not only does he win, but he wins impressively. We can't forget that Anderson Silva was one of the best strikers, one of the best fighters in UFC history. But, you know, him in his 40s now, not being able to rely on his speed like he did when he was younger, I just don't see it going well. I don't see this as a pretty performance for him. I think it's going to be a dominant three-round knockout for Israel Adesanya.
Third round TKO for Israel Adesanya. The pick to click for Ken Flo. I got to say, too, right, this main event, Whitaker and Gastelum, it's about as good as it gets for me on paper, and yet this feels like the Israel Adesanya show. I mean, this dude is all the rage. He's all anyone is talking about. But let us get to the main event. After 14 UFC appearances, got to feel good for this guy. We'll see what he can do with it. But Kelvin Gastelum has arrived at his first UFC championship fight. He is the plus 200 underdog here, not surprisingly. He takes on Sydney's best fighter, UFC middleweight champ Robert Whitaker. Whitaker defended the title once successfully against Yoel Romero. That was UFC 225 back in June. So those two, Romero and Whitaker, went 50 minutes over the last 2 years. Some have suggested those wars could soon, if not immediately, take their toll on the still just 28-year-old Robert Whitaker. He is the minus 250 favorite here Saturday night. Feliz, this is the main event. It's a title fight. We will need the round and the method of victory. Who leaves Melbourne the UFC middleweight champion of the world?
All right, let's go. I'll say first, this is a great fight. But we'll start with Calvin. I think Calvin has clean boxing. I think it's clean and precise. I think it's underrated, and people don't appreciate it. They look at him as a wrestler sometimes still, but his boxing has been good. His hands are extremely fast for the weight class, He fights behind that jab, and the left hand is lightning quick. As Kenny would say, he has a good beard. You don't see him hurt very often. And then the guy shines when the lights are on. He doesn't seem to feel the pressure. Robert Whitaker, on the other hand, he also has good boxing. He's just an all-around good fighter, and that guy has a ton of heart. He's had to show it in his Romero fights. And then on the other, also, both these fighters are examples of guys not cutting weight and just excelling. This is a real tough pick, but I think Whitaker can get tagged and hurt. We've seen it in the Romero fights. I think with Gastelum's fast hands, he's going to stun Whitaker. The difference is I think Gastelum has the knockout power, the finishing ability, gas tank, and aggressiveness to put Whitaker away. I'm tempted to say first round knockout for Gastelum, but I'll make it the second round TKO Calvin Gastelum.
Wow, Feliz. Gastelum round 2 TKO. And I will tell you, Feliz, Ray Longo picked Gastelum as well earlier on. I guarantee you Gastelum wins. He's crying in that octagon. This would be such a breakthrough moment for him as an individual. I think it would be tears of joy for him. Feliz, great job, my man. Thank you for putting in the time and for listening, and we'll certainly get you back on before the year is out, my man. Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Good job, man.
All right, Ken Flo. So Robert Whitaker broke through and first became the middleweight champion. It was July of 2017, courtesy of one of those wins over Yoel Romero, that one by unanimous decision. 2 fight of the nights between these two guys. Now Bobby Knuckles has had what amounts to 7 full months off since the last one. But I think for all of us, the takeaway, especially after watching that UFC 213 fight, was like, Jesus, man, like what price have you paid? Your thoughts on that storyline, that narrative in terms of how Whitaker responds out the backside of those 2 fights, and ultimately who you see getting their hand raised here Saturday night?
Well, you make a great point, right? I mean, he had 2 5-round wars against Yoel Romero. What did that take out of him? Now, he's still very young. I think that he will be just fine here in this fight against Calvin Gastelum. But listen, what Felice said, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Gastelum gets a stoppage win early in this fight. I think Gastelum is that good. I have a lot of respect for him. When I look at the fight, I say, listen, he has spent 50 minutes in his last 2 fights against a very powerful Olympic-level wrestler in Yoel Romero, a guy that not only can wrestle, but he's a very powerful striker as well. He's knocked out a lot of guys in the UFC in dramatic fashion. And I think that experience just goes a very far way with me as far as the young Robert Whitaker. I think Whitaker, with his karate style, he's very good at finding his angles and blitzing at the right times. If we're not going to see panic out of him against Romero, he's just not going to panic, period, against anybody. And at an early age, and the fact that he's probably really only getting better and getting more confident with each title defense, I think it's going to be hard to beat a guy in Robert Whitaker. I think Whitaker gets it done. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I think it will be a close fight. A lot of respect for Gastelum. I think Whitaker gets it done by decision here.